If you've ever wondered why your blood sugar's all over the place, how many carbs can you eat without getting in trouble, or if you wanted to know how to manage your A1C on autopilot, that's exactly what we're going to cover today. But in the same breath, I can't help but notice just how beautiful it is outside today. So come on, you're coming with me. Hey, what's up? Real quick, before we get into the meat and potatoes, there's a couple of things that I got to do here, okay? So first off, there's some people that I have to thank, okay? So real quick, if you're anything like me, you've probably struggled for a couple of years, finally found your way, and then all of a sudden, you get to the point where you've struggled, only God knows how many years you may have taken off your life, and then by the time you are able to normalize your blood panel, and the minute that your doctor now takes you off your meds, you're like, yes, but because you've also realized, that this is a disease that ultimately leads to death, one of the first things that you typically wonder is like, man, how can I help other people, right? And so real quick, that's one thing that I absolutely love about the groups that I'm in, is that unlike other dietary groups where people are like throwing rocks at each other and each other's diets and stuff like that, we understand that we have a disease that ultimately kills people. Okay, and so when we see other people struggling, when we see other people trying it doesn't necessarily work. It's not like, haha, like this diet works for me, like too bad for you. We're not doing any of that because we understand what's at risk, okay? And because of that, I was super humbled, and I want to thank everyone that's either liked it, shared it, reached out, because to be totally honest, it totally and completely inspired me to do this. Actually, it really kind of set me on fire. So real quick, I want to reach out to some folks and really just kind of personally thank you, because without you guys, to be totally honest, this video right now would not be possible. So real quick, I want to thank some folks, and real quick, I also want to apologize up front if I happen to mispronounce your name, all right? But at the same time, because you had inspired me, I want to absolutely thank you, and at the same time, lift you up and lift everyone up here amongst your peers, because the faster, okay, my sincere personal belief is the faster that we cut through the crap, obviously help each other, help ourselves, do good for ourselves, lift each other up, the faster that we can actually just kind of get through, crush this bloody disease, and change lives forever. All right, so let's do this. So some folks that I want to thank. All right, here we go. Starting from the top, and again, I do apologize if I mispronounce your name. We've got Elle, Jahau, Janice, Doris, Nazak, Tiffany, Jamie, Julie, Roslyn, James, Kat, Penny. This is a lady that I actually saw, I think my first or second video said that she's going to go ahead and work out again. That's awesome. Okay, good for you, Penny. We've got Kat, Linda, Reiki, I hope I'm saying that right, Krista, Anita, Carolyn, Joshua, Yolandi, Liz, we've got Simon, okay? Simon, sir, you are an absolute stud. Simon is a gentleman that had changed his lifestyle, cut down his calories, cut down his carbs, included healthy fat, literally lost, I think, 128 pounds. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Simon. But you, sir, are carrying the torch, okay? You're awesome. We've got Veronica, Nancy, Jay Sheary, I hope I'm saying that right, Amanda, Farid, and Billy, and then last but not least, Karen, okay? Huge shouts out to Karen because she saw one of my videos, I think it was my first video, and she brought up this book, okay? The Power of 10. It's an awesome book about, resistance training, lifting the 10 counts, if you will, 10 up and 10 down. And I definitely want to give her a huge shout out, and here's why, okay? So the ladies, okay, you ladies out there, just to let you know, you're absolutely crushing it right now. Okay, this recommendation, this book, okay, to me was a little bit shocking because I came to know this book from powerlifting, okay, and this was a woman that recommended this book, and then when we started commenting back and forth, it was nothing but women actually supporting it. All right, and when I go to the gym in the morning, I have to be absolutely honest in that it is mainly women that are now signing up faster than the guys. So, ladies, high five to you, fellas. We're getting our cheeks handed to us here, okay? So get off your cheeks, let's go, okay? We're getting crushed over here, but it's a good way, okay? So, ladies, high five. All right. So, anyways, I want to give you a little bit of context, okay? So after those last couple of videos, I was like, man, I was so inspired, so humbled. At the same time, I sat there thinking to myself, man, if you're someone that you don't know why your blood sugar's all over the place, if you're someone that's even advanced and intermediate, I was trying to think to myself, man, what can I give Like, what can I give to absolutely help crush this disease? And then boom, I think it was like Wednesday or Thursday, it hit me, okay? And so here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go over it, and then at the same time, let me know what you think. Okay, cool. Here we go. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So here is what we're about to cover. Now, here's essentially what I had done. So for the last few days here, I've been like literally just kind of combing through all these different like posts and stuff like that. And at the same time, I just kind of like took some notes and like was like, man, like what can I give and what can we do and what can we share here together that'll literally help as many people as possible, like just flatten the curve and like just kind of like, cut through the juju, right? So here's what we're about to cover. You are going to learn and we will find the secret to finding out what foods work best for you on any diet, okay? Even if you're eating takeout or if you want to improve the results on the diet that you're currently on, you're going to find out how certain foods, okay, how certain foods affect your blood sugar over time and how many carbs you can actually eat without getting in trouble. We'll cover one of the simplest ways to control your A1C on autopilot, the secret that every person who controls their blood sugar without medicine, okay, has in common, and the fastest way on how do you control your blood sugar long-term, both improve and control long-term, even if you fail 70% of the time for the next 30 days. All right, so let's get right into it here now. The best part about this simple technique is that you can easily use it whether you were just diagnosed, okay, or even if you're at that intermediate and advanced level looking for that final little tip or tweak or adjustment to take your A1C over the top and absolutely crush it. And at the same time, what you'll also see is where I got some of like my best ideas and like what really kind of like sped my process along with a different handful of mistakes in the hopes that I made, in the hopes that you won't have to make them and go through the same thing. And more than anything, just to help you shortcut ultimately what is going to work best for you. Now, to give you some context as to how and where and why this may apply to you, okay, let me share with you just a little bit of history. And so for me personally, I was diagnosed in the emergency room. Okay, I was in an accident where I got some scrapes on my knee and on my elbow. And some time had gone by, and I was at work one day where my leg literally blew up. Okay, and I ended up having to go to the emergency room. I had no clue why. What I ended up finding out from the ER doctor is that basically some of that bacteria that was in my knee, okay, since my blood sugar came up, that bacteria started to feed like hungry hippos. They completely multiplied and blew up to take up my entire leg. And he literally walks up to me, and I'm sitting there on a gurney in the hallway. It's just my wife and I. It was a really busy night that night. And he really looks at me and he goes, Davis, how long have you been a type 2 diabetic? I stop, I look at him, I look at my wife, I look back at him, and I'm like, well, I guess 5 seconds, And literally that's how I was diagnosed. The crazy thing about being diagnosed, if you're anything like me, right? You get diagnosed, they tell you that you're a type 2 diabetic, and you're looking around like, no, really? Like, you got to be talking to someone else, right? Like, I feel fine, right? Like, I just drove here. I was just talking to, the receptionist. We like smiled and laughed. I was waiting nicely in the waiting room. Like, I feel fine. Like, are you sure? And you're like almost looking around like they're talking to someone else, right? And then what happens is when you say that, or at least when I said that, it feels totally surreal because for the next 5 to 10 minutes, they whip out the chart and they're like, yeah, here's why and here's what this means and all this other stuff. And you're trying to process it all at the same time. Well, right off the bat, I immediately went looking for answers, and a buddy of mine introduced me to some documentaries online, and there were two that caught my attention in particular. So this one is, Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. It is where a gentleman did a 90-day juice fast. Love this movie. And then another one called Simply Raw. And this one is where they take type 1 and type 2 diabetics and reverse their symptoms within 30 days on a raw vegan diet. All right. So you know how we get tested every 90 days? That's exactly what I did. So for the first 30 days, I did, strictly juice fasting. Okay. And then for the next 60 days after that, no solid foods whatsoever on this one. And then, for the next 60 days, I did raw vegan. In fact, raw vegan, these are pictures from a restaurant that I used to go to by the name of 118 degrees. Okay. 118 degrees. And so, I'll never forget it. I literally walk into that, that blood test appointment thinking like, man, like I am so going to crush this right now. I was literally like, touting around like to the girls in the office, like, man, like raw vegan is going to solve like cancer and all this other stuff. It's going to crush this type 2 thing. I'm like, watch me, you know what I mean? Like I was totally just on cloud nine, thinking that, if those guys in the documentary did it for 30 days, okay, and I do it for 90 days, okay, and for 90 of those days, I don't even eat any food. Like, I am so going to crush this right now. I walk in there and then I was completely humbled, right? I felt like an absolute idiot. My A1C was high, my triglycerides were high, and we'll definitely break down how and why that happened, in another video. But because I had literally felt like an idiot, pranced around, I was literally that guy on the diet who told everybody about their diet, right? I was that person, right? And I felt like a moron, I failed in front of everybody at my wife's work. So my wife actually works at that healthcare office at the same time, like, yikes, right? And because I felt like such an idiot, I tried so hard, I didn't even eat food for 30 days. I literally went from eating fried chicken, pizza, and ice cream and failing, right? Obviously, that's how I got diagnosed, to not even eating food, and I still failed. I went off the rails, for the next number of years. And my healthcare provider at the time, bless her heart, she was like, Davis, you need to do something. Like, you need to fix something. Like, this can't go on forever. You're going to hurt yourself. And it wasn't until one day I walked in for another appointment when she gives me the best gift she could have ever given me. Okay. And it was the talk. Okay. And to be totally straight with you, it absolutely sucked. She gave me some of the most sobering questions ever. Okay. She started out with just, how's Michelle and how's the kids? And then next thing you know, she goes over my blood panel, says, hey, look, at this pace, you're probably going to start dialysis in the next 12 months. Right. And so for a lot of people, dialysis is great. It's a place of extension, a place to prolong things. It's a place to, go and test new things until, something else comes out, or, it's a place to transition more than anything. And for my grandfather, that wasn't the case. Okay. Unfortunately, he wasn't one of those people, and he slowly died in that chair, and she didn't know that. Right. And so I was like, whoa, and then right after that were questions like, what's going to be like for Noah when he goes to graduate and you're blind, right? What's going to be like for Samantha when she goes to graduate and you're amputated, right? Or what's it going to be like when it comes to one of their weddings and all they have is your picture there because you're now dead and you're no longer there for them, right? And then what really just kind of punched me in the gut was, what's it going to be like for Michelle when you dump all of this on her shoulders for both her and the kids simply because you chose not to do something? And I was like, oh man, that totally sucked. And here's the weird part about it, right? Here's what's totally weird about it is that for whatever reason, it didn't stick. Okay. For some odd reason, it did not stick. I think the appointment was like on like a Tuesday or Wednesday. And I just was like, okay, well, I feel fine. Like, are you like, man, I'm gonna go get a pizza or something, right? Like I literally, it didn't click. Okay. Really, it just did not click. Definitely not the brightest guy in the world. And so it wasn't until that Saturday when we were putting away groceries, I was sliding something into this crisper drawer. I was having the same exact conversation with my wife, right? She was asking about how that conversation went. I literally laid out the entire conversation in front of her. I put something away in the crisper drawer, and the look on her face did it. Like, that was it. It was the coldest slap in the face of reality, and death at that second, in that moment, became absolutely real to me. It was almost like the cold from inside the refrigerator just came out and engulfed me whole, right? Like my knees felt weak. My stomach started to churn and buckle. Like I almost felt like I wanted to throw up and crawl over and like fall over at the same time. It was like tons of just weight of sand. It was just being poured on my shoulders, and it was just getting like heavier and heavier, like every second that went by. And I almost felt like I was going to black out. Like my hands shuddered, and I was like, like, and my wife, she must've saw it or something. And so like the conversation changed. We got through the groceries, and what really kind of got me that night when her and the kids were, in bed, is that, so for all kind of different, right? So for like me and my kids, I have a phenomenal relationship with my children. Okay. They know everything that I'm doing. They can see everything that I'm feeling. Like they can read me like a wide open book, and I make it that way on purpose. Okay. It's because I love them. And so at the same time, like that's exactly how I talk to them. Okay. I don't pander them, and I don't talk to them like, like little kids. I don't pamper them in that way. And the crazy part about that is that there was absolutely no way. Okay. There was absolutely no way that I can have that same exact conversation with them. Okay. And watch their emotions unfold and be okay with it. That just was not going to happen on God's green earth for whatever reason. That wasn't going to happen. Okay. So I, ironically, at the same time, I don't know about you, but I basically failed every single diet since I was like 9 years old. Okay. So it was like back in the 80s, right? Everything from the powders that came in the cardboard cans, like the cardboard and tin cans, to, the frozen stuff, to all this other stuff. I just failed over and over and over. So ironically, I didn't want another diet. So I ended up buying this book here. Okay. It's The 4-Hour Body by Tim Ferriss. It is a New York Times bestseller, Amazon bestseller, gets wide acclaim, has a huge, just a mass following of people giving it a huge thumbs up and 5 stars and this other good stuff. At the same time, it actually gets a good amount of criticism. Because as you can see here on the cover, everything from rapid fat loss, incredible sex, and becoming superhuman, right? And ironically, if you've ever seen the episode, this is Dr. Oz, and a little bit of trivia here on Dr. Oz. I don't know if you know this. I didn't know this at the time, but he's actually an open heart surgeon, okay? And if you can find the video where they first meet, he actually admits, he goes, Tim, I actually took this book and ran it by my cohorts, right? He ran it by a whole nother group of doctors to try to like shush out and expose like any sort of scams, or, basically just expose if this thing was real or if it was just a bunch of monkey business. Okay. And what they ended up doing is basically just congratulating him. Okay. Cause it's just phenomenal work. And what it is at the end of the day, get past all the, the hypey name and all this other stuff. At the end of the day, all it simply is a series of body experiments, okay? The gentleman just experimented on himself, tried new things, and refined his approach over time, okay? And number one, the biggest takeaway, okay, that I can share with you as a type 2 diabetic, because naturally I'm not a type 1, I'm a type 2. The biggest thing that I can absolutely share is that, if you want that quantum leap, whether it's baby steps or, just a huge shift or a huge jump in your progress, don't ever be afraid to try something new, test something new, document your results, and then basically just refine it over time. Okay. You will be crazily amazed as far as just how far you can go with something so simple. All right. Now, at the same time, that is where I found and was introduced to the slow carb diet. Okay. And then I started to make some headway. And then from there, I got into the paleo diet. And then from there, I then found the ketogenic diet. Now, the crazy thing about the ketogenic diet, is, how like we get tested every 90 days, right? So I ran into this disease, I ran into this diet rather. And, I was just like, man, like I'm a type 2 diabetic and this is a bunch of fat. Like, am I going to die faster? Like, what is this? This is the craziest thing I've ever heard. And I was just like, you know what, man, I got to suspend disbelief and just go for it. But at the time I was totally scared. So I was supposed to start it before a 90-day test. I put it off for a month. And then I only had 60 days left and I put it off again for another month. And then I was like, only had 30 days left. I'm like, you know what I mean? And I only did it for 3.5 weeks. And then boom, 5.9 A1C. And I was like, whoa, like that's crazy. Like, get out of here. Like that, no way. And here's the deal. Okay. Naturally, as type 2 diabetics, our bodies are all different, right? They're actually all different anyway. And this doesn't necessarily work, for everybody. So the biggest takeaway, whether you've tried it and it didn't necessarily work, if you, just haven't tried, or maybe just not believing, or maybe just want to find out what's the most effective point or part of this diet to make, the whole type 2 thing work, or blood sugar thing work for that matter, is this. Okay. What gets measured gets managed. Okay. To be totally honest, on all those other diets, the biggest mistake that I ever made, if you can learn from my mistakes, is this. I was hoping that the diet would do it. Okay. At the time I was looking around online, and it's helpful. Okay. It's definitely helpful at like, all these different miracle foods, like, like avocado, watermelon, bitter melon, cinnamon, ginger, turmeric. that stuff is good, you know, but at the end of the day, if you're not like measuring it and then like keeping track of what it's doing to your body, it's really just like all over the place, right? I mean, it's kind of like this, right? It's kind of like saying, hey, look, we're on a map. We need to get from one side of the globe to the other, okay? And my approach, you know, to be totally honest here, is I was just all over the place. I was just throwing whatever I could against the map to see what stuck, okay? When the truth of the matter is all I really needed was a compass. Okay. Now there's some really good compasses out there for us. There's things like MyFitnessPal and Chronometer, right? There's also like One Drop, right? And then there's also like Glucose Whiz. The problem is that you've got a food app and like a glucose app, and they're both really strong. But the problem that they have, or at least that I've noticed for me, is that there's no correlation to what you ate versus what it did to your blood sugar over time. Like you got to kind of like band-aid the stuff together yourself, right? It doesn't give it to you in a way that's really easy to see, where you can just nitpick and then get to the point really, really easily, right? You're still just kind of like half shotgunning, right? And so the cool thing though about that, to be totally honest, is I still did that. I still did that for the longest time, and I tested things. And yeah, sure. Let me actually give you a really good example of that, because even if you're half like shotgunning, even when you're halfway off, okay, and even when you don't see everything, you can still get phenomenal results and really just kind of point yourself in the right direction. So here's what I mean by that. Okay. So for me personally, I'm a huge fan of this gentleman. Okay. Dr. Dominic DAgostino. Now at the time, I wanted to expand the ketogenic diet. Now that's just fancy talk for I wanted to eat more. Okay. Like, I wanted to find out like how I can eat more without, you know, being trapped in such confines, right? At least for me. Cause by this point I was doing, you know, the ketogenic diet for like a year, like a year and a half, 2 years. And so I found out that he upped his carbohydrate intake, right? And was doing phenomenally well with it. Now, ladies, you probably heard the same thing from, you know, this lady. This is the keto queen herself, right? The Amazon best-selling author, Leanne Vogel of the Keto Diet, where her specialty, okay, just so you know, if you don't know, her specialty is helping women, improve hormonal issues with the ketogenic diet. And she also, you know, recommends carbing up, right? So I was like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and try that. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a shot. And it didn't necessarily work. This was the end of, last year. And basically I'll just read it off, what it says, because this is what I was feeling at the time, to be totally blatantly clear here. Note to self, just because you're ketogenic doesn't mean that your blood sugar is ideal. What a difference 15 grams of carb makes. So just to let you know, I would actually still, now obviously blood is the best way to go. When it did, and urine is not the best way. At the time, I was only testing urine, so it still showed, but obviously my blood sugar would come up. And so I upped my veggies to 32 to 35 grams a day, cycled between intervals. If you haven't watched my interval videos, at the time I was actually doing like really intense intervals with like deadlifts and stuff like that. Well, anyway, between intervals and heavy lifting, and was getting like 120 readings, which would give me like a 6.4 to a 6.5, right? I simply dropped it to 20 grams and only did 3 exercises, right? So like none of those crazy intervals or all these different lifting cycles, 3 exercises and sub 100 readings throughout the day, like yikes, and I was literally banging my head against the wall for only God knows how long trying to figure this stuff out when it really didn't need to be that hard. Now, to be totally honest with you, by this time, like I said, I've been doing keto for like a year and a half, 2 years. And first off, let me say this. I still use keto as a tool. I'm a big fan of it. Okay. One of my goals is to do a marathon. I love the mental acuity portion of it. I mean, I wish they could bottle that somewhere. But at the end of the day, if you're anything like me, if you've done it for 3, 6, 7, 8 months, there's been a day or a couple of days where you broke your macros, you may have gone sideways or whatever. And if I was being honest with myself, I just didn't see myself doing this for 5, 10, 15 years religiously straight, let alone the next 30, 40, or 50 years, that I plan on living. Okay. And let me say this too. I mean, for anybody who's getting phenomenal results, whether it be on your blood panel, whether it be losing weight, whether doesn't even show on the scale and you're packing on muscle and getting ripped and stuff, man, high five. Okay. High five and love to you 100%. Like, I got you. Like, you're bomb. Like, yes, keep doing it. All right. Because here's the deal. The ups and the downs that we go through, right? My personal belief, the ups and downs that we go through are ultimately what we shine from. Right? It's kind of like the whole Rocky movie, if you will. Like if it was some miracle diet, some like, flip of light switch or whatever. I mean, come on. That's like, that's like miracle pill. That's like spam stuff. Like, no, this is real, right? Like what we're doing is real. And so for me, at the same time though, as seeing all these other people do phenomenally well with it, I almost, as much as I was doing well with it myself, I almost started to feel like an outsider because I was like, man, it's like me trying to live out someone else's movie. Like I needed more. I wanted to be able to eat more, and to be totally honest here, as goofy as it sounds, I just wanted to be myself. Okay. So I started looking around at all these other diets that have a proven success record with type 2 diabetes. And if you haven't done your homework, there's a lot of them, right? So there's everything from like Mediterranean, there's Newcastle, there's even the high carb vegan diet, right? High carb sounds weird, but you know what? High five to them. As long as you're getting the results that you're looking for, I'm rooting for you, right? There's that. There's paleo. We've got the Pritikin's protocol, the low glycemic index, low glycemic load, diet for diabetes. And then what I ended up doing is, trying zero carb. Okay. So here we've got, a bunch of steak. The only problem with it is, it was fun for a while, but to be totally honest, I didn't really see myself doing it for super long, but it definitely tasted good. The only real drawback I can see, depending on where you live, is that it can be a bit expensive. Okay. But if you can get past that part, eating steak and brisket every day was pretty fun. After that, just figuring out that I'm not going to do it forever. I had then expanded and gone on to, find the work of Dr. Richard Bernstein, and by this time, from the time that I was first diagnosed till now was probably, or at least until this point, rather, was probably like 6.5 years, or about 6 years or so. Okay. You might be thinking to yourself like, dang, Davis, like, I don't want to, shoot craps for 6 years. And I would absolutely agree with you, because you don't have to. And I'll show you how that's done here in a second. But the biggest thing that I can absolutely give you, if you're anything like me and you're not just a member in one diabetic group, you're probably a member in a couple, right? Or maybe even a few. Okay. And one thing that you've probably learned by now is that there's more than one way to skin a cat. So, again, huge high five to all the moderators, huge high five to all the supporting members. I love you, man. Like, we got this. Okay. And the biggest thing that you can take away from all of them is simply this. Okay. For anyone who's been able to control their blood sugar without medicine, here's the one thing they have in common. They've simply found out what works for them and did it over and over and grew from there. Okay, you can ask every single one of them. Essentially, when you see them, sharing their ideas, it really boils down to this. Okay, and if there's something else, please share with me, what it is, because I would absolutely love to learn from it as well. At the same time, all these ups and downs, these jacked up blood panels I'd go through, binging on food to make myself feel better after getting my head ripped off, and taking only God knows how many years off my life, not knowing any better, absolutely sucked. I wouldn't change it for the world. I'm actually thankful for that whole experience, but I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And here's what I mean by that, right? So if you're anything like me, some of you guys probably haven't had a doctor completely agree with what you're doing. Or maybe even a healthcare professional for that matter, or even like a family member or whatever. Okay. Perfect example. Okay. So, my healthcare provider, at the time, she had moved, and I absolutely love her to pieces. At the time I was trying the ketogenic diet, and she was like totally against it. Okay. Like, no. At the same time, when I looked at my blood panel, that one time that I got a 5.9, and it improved like a bunch of my other markers. I had nothing like that for the past, I don't even know how many years, regardless of how many shots or pills or anything. And just to put things into context, at my peak, I was shooting up twice a day, taking a half dozen medicines, going to normalizing my blood sugar and being off those medicines completely. Okay. At the time, she didn't believe in the diet, which is totally cool, right? No harsh, whatever. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, and she just totally went off and told me how much my blood sugar sucked. Because at the time I was testing other things. And because she was so against it, I tried cycling out of it so much, even though I knew that I got really good results from it. Okay. And I remember having, I think like a 6.4 or a 6.5 on my A1C. And she's just tearing me a good one, right? Like, your blood panel sucks and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, good Lord. And so I'm like, all right, well, half dazed. I'm like, what do you think I should do? Right. And she's like, she whips out, she goes, maybe you should try this. Okay. And it was the plate thing. Right. And I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at this diagram thing, and I'm like looking at the fruit juice, and I'm looking at the bread, and I'm looking at the milk, and I'm looking at like, you need like 25% or like percentage of the plate. And I'm like, okay. And so just so you know, if you don't already know, like in the scientific world, OSE or OS is basically sugar. Okay. It's the simplified sugar. So I look at the juice, and I'm like, okay, I'm like, ma'am, that's fructose. The milk, that's lactose. The bread, I like bread, but it's just, it's basically just a bunch of flour, and then look at the plate, like, and she's like, well, that's only why it's like 25 or 35% or whatever. And, God bless her heart, she didn't know this, but I whipped out my phone and I pulled up my Fitness Pal, and I was like, okay. I'm like, you literally just took all this time ripping my head off, telling me how much my diet sucks, and I'm only eating like, I think 5 or 10%, like 5 grams or like 10% or like 5% or 10 grams of my calories a day or something like that was carbohydrates. And like, you're now telling me to multiply it by like 5 and drink sugar in the form of fructose and lactose and eat a bunch of flour? And she walked out, she completely walked out. And in her defense, while we're hanging out here, let me just be totally honest. Okay. In her defense, I'm like the worst person to take any medicine. Okay. In fact, for me personally, okay, let me start by saying this. Always do what your doctor tells you. Okay. I'm not a doctor. I'm definitely not trying to play one on the internet. Okay. But for me personally, right, while we're hanging out, let me just kind of like air something out real quick. For me personally, I just came to the realization that if I'm horrible taking my medicine, right, basically means that like I'm either like I'm just irresponsible, I'm inept, whatever you want to call it, right, and that is I have to rely on that to get by, right? Then having to rely on like a flawed system or something that's not working is a one-way path to Scroogeville. Okay, like that's the easiest way that I can put it. Not only that, for me, and naturally, these are just my opinions, has nothing to do with anything else that has to go on here whatsoever. At the same time, I learned in elementary school that with every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Okay, so if you're anything like me, over time, over maybe like the last 20, 30 years, you've probably seen ads on the TV like, did you take this medicine or did you take this supplement or whatever, right? So when it comes to that equal and opposite reaction, we're talking about chemicals here, and we're talking about chemicals that go in the body. And I'm like, man, like if I'm putting this chemical in my body and it's suppressing something, or it's accelerating something, or it's triggering something that's not naturally happening, what is the payoff down the road? Right? So I started asking when I would start getting these new drugs, like, okay, are there any 5, 10, 15, or 20-year case studies on any of this stuff that I could read? And a lot of the time the answer was no. So I was like, all right, like awesome. Like, I just felt like a lab rat, like that's how I felt. And just to put things out there, Metformin, actually, I think they did one and it came out good. But anyways, I say all of this and I share all of this because here's the deal. It doesn't have to be that hard. Okay, does not have to be that hard. And I will absolutely show and prove it to you because if it wasn't for the thoughts and the ideas and the inspiration that you guys gave me, I wouldn't have been able to put this together. Here we go. So, boom. So this is a sugar tracker. Okay. And let me make something really vitally clear here. First and foremost, okay, my sincerest goal, wish, and dream is for all of us to help as many people conquer and crush this bloody disease. So know up front that you are absolutely not paying a single penny for this, okay? If you want it, simply message me, bingo, and it's yours, all right? That's it. Now, here is how simple this whole thing works, okay? All you do, okay, is you simply enter all the red boxes, and then this whole thing auto-populates, and so does all the other calculators. It auto-populates everything for you, okay? So all you do is in the morning, you put your fasting number here, right? Right before you have breakfast, you put that number there. 2 hours later, you put the number there, and then you do the same thing for lunch and then for dinner. Okay? Now, the best part about this is that the more that you put into it, the more that you get out of it. Okay? And here's what I mean by that. Okay? You can put in your body weight. Obviously, if you're using a tracker already, you can put in your calories, right? You can put in what food you ate. Okay? And here's a really quick, cool tip and trick is once you put what food you ate in there, if you're using, even if you're not using a tracker, okay, let's just say you put in there, hey, protein burger, hold the ketchup, right? You'll see what it did to your blood sugar over time, right? Like real simple, okay? Doesn't have to be rocket science whatsoever, okay? At the same time, all right, you can put in, how many carbs you ate and then see the same thing, right? Bingo, right? Super simple, like not hard whatsoever. You simply do this throughout the week, all right? And then at the end of the week, here's what you get, okay? Bingo, all right? It shows you all your highs, okay? It shows you all of your averages throughout the week, and it shows you all your lows. And then when you fill in the blue boxes, it auto-populates this stuff. All right. Now let's break something down really, really cool here, and why I absolutely wish that I had this like 6.5 years ago or 7 years ago now when I was diagnosed. Okay. So here's what we're looking at. On the right-hand side, here's the legend. Okay, and what it does is just basically tells us what every point on this thing means, right? So fasting before breakfast, 2 hours after breakfast, before lunch, 2 hours after, and then dinner. Okay, now here's what's cool. Okay, because we're type 2 diabetic, obviously our bodies are going to react to things differently. Okay, they're going to react to things differently. So all you're looking for, okay, to really make this as simple as possible and cut through the mustard, okay, is simply look for, as you go through the week, okay, like simply just stick the information in there and just keep cruising, okay, like it's not hard at all. And then you just turn right back around when you're done, and then just identify foods like this, okay. Now, naturally, these numbers are sample numbers. For example, purposes only, your numbers are going to be, obviously your numbers and unique to you, but essentially, here's what you're looking for, okay. You want to find meals that don't overspike your blood, right? Like, pretty bloody common sense, right? At the same time, what you're also going to find, depending on how your body reacts to different foods, okay? Some are going to go up, right? Like, like skyrocket, right? And then some of them are even going to go down, right? Some of them they might flatline, it might like barely crawl, or some of them, for whatever reason, right, are, I guess the blessing and the curse with type 2 diabetes, that our bodies are a little haywire. Some of them might even go down. All right. Like, wow, like how and why did that happen? Right. You see it in the groups all the time. And the cool thing about that is this. Okay. Let's say you do this for the next 30 days. Okay. Let's say you do this for the next 30 days and breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You only have, like, let's say you just have 3 meals a day, 30 days, that's 90 meals. Okay. And let's say you fail 70% of the time, right? So between, if you had breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day, 2 of your meals just kept doing this, right? Just totally just skyrockets your blood sugar. But let's say 1 time a day, or within 90 meals, you only find 30 of them that either don't overly spike your blood sugar, okay, or, barely make it crawl, flatline, or even go down. All you got to find are meals that do that. Okay. And that's it. Okay. By the end of the month, you'll have 30 meals. Okay. In 30 days, you can literally have what it took years. Okay. Let's be straight here. Okay. Depending on what group you're in, you'll literally find people that have struggled with this disease for anywhere from months, years, and even decades, and haven't been able to figure it out yet. Okay. And if you are one of those people, let me give you a hug, high five to you, because this, God willing, will be your golden ticket. This is something that I put together for everybody to benefit from, whether you're advanced, whether you just got diagnosed, whether you've been struggling with it, whether everything, because here's the thing. What we're going to do right now is I'm going to show you just how simple and effective this is by being able to uncover what a lot of other things don't show you, and where a lot of us as type 2 diabetics get hurt and we're completely blind to it. Okay, so let me show you what I mean. As you go through this process, you're going to find things that happen like this, right? So let's look at this, right? So what's this? This is right before breakfast, okay? Fourth point on the chart. Here's before breakfast. Here's after breakfast. All right, cool. You know, it's just under like 30-point drive. Like, it's not bad at all, right? And the next thing you know, like, whoa, before then and dinner, like, bingo, like, it kept on going. Like, what the heck is that, right? The problem with the standard 2-hour protocol is this, okay, is that it's like a lot like watching a movie. So imagine walking into the theater, you watch the beginning credits for 2 minutes, and then you walk out. Okay. And then you hang out for, I don't know, anywhere from 10 minutes to 45 minutes. You walk back in, you see 2 minutes, and then you go back out. And you do that 2 or 3 times throughout the movie, and then expect to know the entire movie. Like, it's not going to happen, right? Like, that is the most confusing thing ever. And unfortunately, that's what people are doing with their blood sugar, right? Here, right now, we get to expose what I call the long tail effect. Okay, the long tail effect. And this is how you can find out specifically what carbs and what proteins do to your blood sugar over the long term. Okay, perfect example. Okay, so when I was doing zero carb, I found the blog of a lady who was, eating a bunch of pork. Okay, now pork, if you look at it like on a macros or a tracker, straight up, it's like zero carb, right? Like, there's no carbs in it. What this lady found is that her blood sugar would shoot as high as like 130, or I think maybe even high as 150, and she's not even a diabetic. Okay, now mind you, that's unique to her. Okay, but at the same time, here's what that means. What we'll find over time is that our bodies will process foods differently. Okay, and because we can now that we have a tool that'll show us what's happening after the fact, right, we can now better identify what foods might be, hurting us and us not even knowing it, right? Depending on how this works for you. So, for example, if we only took a 2-hour read, right, like from all the way from over here, like, we don't know if this is like, if it went like this, you know what I mean? We don't know if it like did like one big slow rainbow. We don't know if it came up and it like flatlined for a long time and came down, or in this instance, within one meal to another, it came up and then it literally like hockey sticked up and it kept on rocket climbing up until, only Lord knows how high before we ate again and it drove it down. Like, we would have been, until that happened, right? Like, we would have been completely blind to this. Okay. And this is crazy important because some of us have crazy swings. And the number one thing with blood sugar is obviously we want to, be able to control it. And now you can see at the click of a button, like what is happening on a day-to-day basis. Man, that is huge, right? That's huge. It totally cuts the mustard. And the beautiful thing about it is that it works with any diet. Like, this doesn't matter if you're vegan, paleo, keto, green eggs and ham, you lick the bottom of like old running shoes. It doesn't matter, right? This is simply, it cuts all the diet stuff into 3 simple steps. Here's what I ate, here's what it did to my body, and here's what I'm doing next. All right. That simple. Okay. That simple. Now, let me make something really clear here. Okay. And I'm sure we're on the same page, but just to kill any sort of weirdness out there, by no means is this like a miracle diet. Okay. I'm not pitching you a diet. I'm not pitching you a pill. None of that stuff. It's simply, and this is the cool thing. The best part about this is you're not chasing someone else's tail or trying to fit into someone else's box. This is 100% unique to you, unless you're like sticking someone else's finger and putting their numbers in here or whatever. Right. Which is like dumb. But anyways, point made, right? But at the same time, here's the thing. Okay. The best part about this is that, man, it cuts the headache. Okay. It totally cuts the headache, because what the moderators have found, or maybe even people trying to help and all this other stuff, all these people that are controlling their blood sugar without medication. Okay. Since they found what worked for them and now do it over and over and over, if you just did this for the next 30 days, you failed 70% of the time, you're going to have at least 20 to 25 and maybe even 30 foods at a 30% fail rate, okay? That work for you, right? That work for you. Don't work for anyone else. Like, it's not some weird documentary, trying to like propagate a diet or anything like that, right? And let's be clear here, right? Obviously, if you're eating like potato chips and ice cream, like you're not going to control your blood sugar automatically, okay? But once you have those 20, 30, okay, sometimes if you're halfway decent at it, or if you're like halfway through a diet, or maybe even at that advanced or even like intermediate level, right off the bat, you're probably going to find like 40 or 50 meals. All right, like bingo, right? Like you've got more than a wide enough platform to stand on and grow and, share your ideas and really just kind of like refine things in the best way that work for you, right? And if you found any of this helpful, please do me a favor. Let's all lift each other up and share this, okay? Because the cool thing about this tool, just to let you know, works on PCs, Macs, it works on an iPhone, it works on Android. Simply message me and it's yours. It is my humblest, sincerest wish to absolutely help as many people crush this disease. And the people, again, that I have to thank are the moderators, the team members. I have to hold you guys up, man, because if you haven't already noticed, okay, until the mainstream catches on, okay, for anybody active in any of these groups, we're the ones, okay? We're the ones that ultimately lift each other up, shortcut the problems, share ideas, and put this stuff out there to ultimately crush this disease, okay? And high five. All right, like let me just get that out there, okay? So huge. Again, if you want this, you're not paying a penny for it. Simply, message me and it's yours. If you know anybody that has type 2 diabetes and you just want to cut through the mustard, okay, and find out what works for them, share this with them or just share this in general, and we will absolutely crush this thing together. Thanks again. Let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. Hey, I absolutely hope that serves you well. If it did, do me a favor right now and share it, okay? And if you happen to be on YouTube watching this, okay, what I'll do is in the comment section or the link section, or description section, if you will, I'll put the link to sign on to Facebook. You can actually just kind of sign in there, message me there, and I'll be more than happy to give it to you, okay? At the same time, while you're watching this right now on YouTube, do me a favor and subscribe to the channel, because what I'm going to do is after this, I'm going to be putting together in the future a series of videos that'll actually show you how to use this free tool, okay, and give you really easy, quick, simple to implement strategies that'll help you really kind of cut the crap and find out what will work best for you. All right? So I hope that helps you out. By all means, have an awesome day. I'm off. Cheers. Right. Here is something that you can definitely run away with right now. Cool. So let's look at this. Let's look at this chart. All right. Perfect example. Okay. Let's say on this day right here. So what is this? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Okay. Thursday, I ate a good amount of calories. All right. Now let's look at my numbers. Okay. Bingo. All right. Wow. Like, look at that. Like a really decent mid-range number, really decent daily average. My high for the day wasn't all that bad, and I had a really cool low. Okay. And I ate a lot. Now, at the same time, look what happened over here. Like, here is a low calorie day, and ironically, like, man, it shot my numbers way up. So clearly, I don't want to do this. I can eat a lot more and get this, right? And obviously, what works for your body, this will show you, right? Oh, this will be a great tool to help you along the way. And so as you're making these adjustments, you can say, hey, look, let me just make a lot of days like this, all right? Especially when you find out what your body likes to do, and especially when it comes in correlation with how it helps you lose weight, if that's what you want to do. All right.